We live in strange times. We live in a polarized world where it is not the law, but self-appointed morality keepers of our nation, the so-called conscience keepers of our political discourse, a sizable army of media mandarins who have determined, proclaimed, and in a sense, imposed battle lines and red lines which can never be breached by anyone speaking in context of the Muslim community in India. It is almost as if these worthies are shouting in our ears, Ba Adab, Ba Mulaiza Hoshiar. Muslims are being talked about, so beware, exercise the utmost caution, speak with decorum and extreme respect. This perhaps explains the extreme reactions, the vitriol flung Yogi Adityanath's way when he made the Abba remarks. I listened carefully to Yogi's remarks and two things struck me in that pronouncement. The first was the beginnings of a smile on Yogi's face, which could be interpreted by these worthies as a jeer, though to me it appeared more as a colloquial UP expression of Yogi telling Muslim brothers and sisters, Arey Baba, open your eyes. Don't you see how they manipulate you? And then, of course, the words themselves. Abbajan is a term of respect and not hate speech, as a perennial critic of the Modi government, Sabah Naqvi, has suggested. The Rashan Khage jibe is a gentle ribbing, a humorous UP-style engagement with the Muslim community, an attempt in maybe an inelegant, but nevertheless a colloquial and a sincere way to engage with them and draw them out of their silos and open a conversation with them. But woe betide to these attempts by Yogi. All hell broke loose. Our secular worthies, like millions of drones, descended on Yogi to attack him and question how dare the bigot draw out their favorite community, mothballed by them into seclusion and cliches. How dare Yogi, without the proper Nehruvian preamble of utmost respect, engage with Muslims? How dare one man try and make Muslims feel one of us? Which would of course mean people you casually hang around with, laugh and joke with them, where everyone belongs in the same room and no one is an outsider. How dare this man do it? How dare he? That, ladies and gentlemen, is the crux of the problem. And on this note, let me welcome all of you to the CAA Show. CAA, as of course all of you know, is Conversations and Analysis, and my name is Juggi Bhasin. So, the genesis of this splendid isolation of the Muslims imposed and enforced by our secular worthies goes back to the time of Nehru. Nehru was more of an internationalist than a nationalist. Whatever he did was with one eye on the international stage, how his actions would be perceived, lauded, and feted on the world stage. The mothballing of the Muslim community began in his time and has continued ever since. It does not matter to these worthies that the Muslim community languishes behind other minorities in terms of wealth creation, job opportunities, health parameters, and both primary and higher education advancement. All that matters for these worthies is that the Muslim community should be cocooned in tattered, hideous conservatism, protected from the winds of change and social dynamism, and that they should only venture out to vote and build a bank as and when required. Let me then contrast the trajectory of another minority to make this point of social and political isolationism of the Muslim community to make it more clear to you. Despite the ongoing farmers' protest and the Punjab political crisis, the Sikh community by and large is very well integrated in the mainstream today. Critics would say that this is simply because Sikh Hindu cultural traditions go way back. That might be true to some extent, but that is not the whole truth or the complete reality. After Operation Blue Star and Indira Gandhi's assassination in 1984, Sikhs faced a terrible backlash, a hate worse than anything which any other Muslim has probably ever faced in this country. They were looked upon as anti-national, as a people who had betrayed Indira Gandhi. Certainly, at that point in time, all the old ties between Sikhs and Hindus were forgotten. They did not matter to many people in the country. Now, think about it. From that position and time of despair and hopelessness, how did the Sikhs manage to come back in the mainstream, integrate well again, and be accepted as one of us? And how come the Muslims have always been outside the pale of acceptance, as a kind of the other, the community best left to themselves? The tempting answer to this question would be that the Muslims are of a different religion, but that is not really the truth. Fact is, a set of people have kept the Muslims isolated post-independence for their own vested interests. Fortunately for the Sikhs, this entire intellectual, liberal, secular class was not active post-1984. In the absence of any other group of people to take up their cause, the Sikhs hunkered down without help, worked hard, and slowly and with resolute determination worked their way back to prosperity and mainstream integration, especially after so many of their businesses had been burned down in the 1984 riots. They proved to the country that you don't need crutches or the interference of bleeding hearts or the secular liberals to lift a community out of isolation and despair. Unfortunately, in the case of Muslims, the secular liberal lot made them into their project to isolate them from reality and competition, and in a sense, push them back even more into obscurity and backwardness. The sad truth is that the secular lot have feathered their own nests in carrying on this project. Without taking names, look at all the leading voices who are always playing the Muslim card. These include out of favor and work senior journalists, scriptwriters and poets seeking relevance again, political entities left by the wayside, historians and intelligentsia desperately seeking a grant and annuity of some kind, maybe even a business class lecture trip abroad, especially now when travel is opening. The truth also is that the key to integration can only be turned by the community itself and not by those who claim to speak on behalf of the community. The more these worthies speak up for the community, the more they evoke disgust in the rest of the country, and of course, they push back the Muslims more and more in the black hole of poverty, despair, and hopelessness. So, on that note, we come to the end of this particular episode, and I hope you have enjoyed this episode. And if you like the CAA show, please do subscribe to us. And on that note, it's goodbye from me and cheers to everyone.